board, guys. Happy to have you here. Today, Politically Active is hosting a series of meetings across the day. We'd like to get to know some local government officials, elected officials, state electeds, and of course a national elected later this afternoon. Before we can get to the geographically larger stuff, it's very important to realize that when we talk about national government, kind of very few things that the national government will do on a daily basis or a weekly basis actually directly impacts your life. Everything they do impacts your daily life. So let's take a little while, get to know these folks, talk a little bit about the nature of their jobs and some of the stuff that they have to decide and make determinations on a regular basis. So we are joined, once again, this is Civic Connection Day. Please welcome Dr. Shurita Thomas-Tate of the school board and Dr. Maryam Mohammadkhani of the school board. Thank you. First things first, we'll start off either one of you, just open question. You guys are elected to the school board. What is the school board? What are you guys doing? What's your mission statement?
Our mission statement.
Mission statement, your thesis.
First off, thank you for having us. This is such an important conversation, and you've hit the nail on the head. So what happens locally is what affects you most. And what a travesty that most people don't understand that. So this is really important. This is a college, and this is where you learn all those life skills, and this is such an important thing to learn. So I want to thank you for bringing awareness to this very important subject, which is what happens in your backyard is determined by your local government. So everybody knows what a mayor is, right? City council. Now there's school board. School board is very important because the school board is a body of 7, and every single person in the state of Missouri lives in a school district. So regardless of whether you live in a city or a county, some rural road, you belong to a school district. And that school district is in charge of the public schools in that district. And that means every student from, we now have early childhood all the way through graduation. So the school board makes decisions that would result in the mission, which is everybody's varies a little bit, but at the end of the day, our mission is to make sure that we have graduates that are ready for life after school, whatever shape that is, and how successful the public schools are is how successful that community is. And we can certainly talk about why those two are correlated, causality, every way you look at it, it is deeply impactful. And if you guys are sitting in this room, I'm going to assume that you all graduated from high school, so you know what a school is. It's the heartbeat of every community, but it really shapes the future of that community. And even if you leave the community, other people are coming in, and they've been shaped in a different school district, right? So at the end of the day, it does shape the future of that community.
Now later we'll be joined by national officials and state officials, but more than anybody else, you guys see the community members that are affected by the policies that you make. Eric Burleson we're being visited with later. How often does he hang out in Springfield? By the nature of his job, not that often. But you're there all the time. How much does that affect your decision making? The fact that the constituents that vote for you, or at least eligible to vote for you, you see every day, everywhere you go.
I think hello. Hi. Again, thank you all for having us here. I think it makes a significant impact on how we do our work. We are on an everyday basis, whether you are going to work or to the grocery store, to the gas station, encountering people whom live in this district and whom the decisions you make are impacting them. Again, you don't have to have children in Springfield Public Schools in order for the schools to be an important part of your existence here in Springfield. If you are a resident of a community, your health of the community is really gauged by the health of your school system. And so if you are supporting and graduating students who are independent thinkers and have a strong sense of self and identity and skills to support themselves, and they're going to be better community members. And so we want to have schools that help develop students into adults who can contribute to our society. And on an everyday basis, we are encountering those people, again, everywhere we go. And we're hearing from them. They're telling us what their needs are. They're telling us what their concerns are. And we don't have any shortage of having the opportunity to hear from folks in the community.
Once again, my name is Andrew Crocker. I'm a co-sponsor of Politically Active, but we're joined by Vice President Teagan today. And ma'am, would you like to get involved in the conversation?
So the first question.
Make sure you're turned on. Perfect.
So my first question is not coming from that microphone. My first question is for Maryam Mohammadkhani. As a member of the Springfield Board of Education, you've been involved in discussions about the district's strategic goals, including diversity and workforce development. How do you balance the need for a diverse workforce with the goal of maintaining high academic standards?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Can you paraphrase?
So you have worked to include diversity in workforce development in public school systems. How do you balance the need for a diverse workforce and also maintain the high academic standards? So how are we meeting both goals of academic standards and trying to get people into the workforce?
When you say diverse workforce, do you mean people that would go into, vocational, military, college? Or do you
Yes.
mean the individuals are diverse?
No, so like we have all these different areas they can go into. How do we meet both requirements?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to answer that. I'm still not sure what you're asking because they're one and the same. But if I can just say something before I delve into that. So we talk a lot about getting students prepared for the future, and I completely agree with Dr. Thomas-Tate because it impacts the community that you live in. But for those of you who don't have students in schools, it impacts you in a different way that I want you to stretch your mind and think about. You may not have considered this. When you have students who are not self-sufficient, who aren't contributing to society, because that is what we want, it's not just their lack of contribution that the community suffers from. It's the fact that now you all need to take care of them and fill that void. So I want you to think about that. So if you have somebody who is not functionally literate and can't get a job, because that's what happens, that could pay the bills, then they become a burden onto society. So it goes beyond not contributing to the society. They become a burden, and they're a burden onto you. So you should very much be invested in that, which takes us to workforce development. Regardless of where you go into the workforce, high academic expectations are a priority. You take different courses. I think the partnership that we have with OTC is, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but it's the most valuable partnership that we have. Okay, I don't know who you are, but yay! It is the most valuable partnership, in my opinion, because there's a lot of jobs out there, and we have seen a trend where we're not able to fill those positions. There is a need for migrant workers, but then at the same time, we have people who don't have skills to fill those jobs, and these jobs make 6 figures. There are these jobs that you make more than somebody who did get a college education and a postgraduate degree. So there's absolutely no shame in these jobs. I think in some ways you almost sometimes have a great work-life balance. Some of these jobs keep you up and going, so you're not sitting at a desk. And so they're actually better for you physically. They might take you outside where the sun is, and so it can really be good for you. So we need to go back to, and this has kind of become a dirty word, but I'm a huge fan of it, which is old school. There's nothing wrong with old school, and we need people to fill all positions, and you can be absolutely happy and prosper. But all of that means you should have high academic expectations. Everybody who leaves school should be able to do algebra, because whether you're going to go to university and be an engineer, or whether you're going to be a carpenter, you need to know what a quarter of an inch is. And today, at Missouri State University, we have high school algebra being offered, and I found out yesterday that Harvard University is also offering high school mathematics. This is why I'm such a fan of OTC. Did I answer your question?
Yes, that was amazing, thank you. My next question is for Dr. Thomas-Tate. As an associate professor in the Department of Communications and Sciences and Disorders at Missouri State University, you teach courses related to child language and literacy. How do your academic insights inform your work on the school board, especially in areas like literacy development and educational equity?
As a board member, it's our job to have oversight of what happens in the district. We have oversight of all sorts of different areas. Our primary areas, as Maryam has mentioned, is policy, and we also have oversight over the superintendent with regards to her employment with the district and her review. However, I think that one of the things that I bring to the board, and each board member brings their own individual experiences and expertise to the board experience, is understanding early childhood education, the needs that go into early childhood education, particularly with regards to literacy and with regards to special education. It's really important to me that all students have the opportunity to have a high quality education and a great experience with regards to their education. I'm really concerned or have a strong affinity towards making sure that those students aren't left behind, those students who have special needs. They still have the ability to have great gains and great success, as well as students with regards to literacy across the board. My interest in early childhood education aligns very well with my interest in early literacy, because those two things are very much aligned. The better we do at educating our children in those early grades regarding literacy, the better success we're going to have later on. We can't wait till later on in order to help children to succeed. We need to catch them before they fall. This requires that we have strong curriculum standards, strong expectations, and highly qualified teachers. And that aligns also with the work that I do at Missouri State to make sure that we have educators who are prepared to support those students in the school setting.
So those are both thoughtful answers, and thank you to both of you. And today is all about federalism. Obviously, you guys are local government people. And this is a little bit of a political question, but in those mission statements that you both elucidated, do you consider the state government, what many folks might not realize is that SBS is the largest school district in the state? You kind of wouldn't think that because of the enormous cities we have. But do you consider the state government a partner in that? Would you say that the state government is a net benefit? Do you feel like it's sometimes holding you back? How would you describe the relationship that you have as board members with the state of Missouri in your mission statement?
I think that that is a tough question, because I think each board member may view this in a slightly different way. I think ideally, we would be working collaboratively with the state. However, sometimes our goals don't align, and when the goals don't align, the biggest barrier that we have would be the cost of educating kids and how we use our funds and how we support the public education system with regards to funding. There's also some questions with regards to oversight from the state and how much they engage. And so there's those differences of opinion that weigh into each board member's perspective. However, school boards are nonpartisan, and so our hope and our goal and our desire is for the state to support local education. And we have recently been trying to engage more at the state level to make sure that our state representatives and those who are at the state and federal level understand what our needs are here in Springfield and the state of Missouri with regards to public education, and that we provide advocacy for those areas.
What do you think, Doctor? Do you regard the state as a big helper, or do they sometimes get in the way, or both?
That's a complicated question. I think it's important to first state the fact that we are a local government, local school district government setup. So the state respects that each district is governed at the local level. And for the longest time, they have been very respectful of that. And then somewhere along the way, this administrative body called Department of elementary and secondary education became a runaway train. And so this administrative body took on powers that the constituents or the end results, and I'm not taking a personal position, I'm just stating how we came to where we are. And so when you let people do what they want and there's not legislative oversight over here, and so then they're here telling the school districts what to do. And then as a result of this shift in dynamics, there's a lot of constituents who aren't happy with the product. So they're not happy with their public schools. So what do? They go and they run to their legislators and they say, do something, do something. And in response, the legislators are trying to now come around and legislate to the quote-unquote local school districts that they're, I'm a big fan of local control because I think government is most effective when it's closest to the people. That means us. Well, not just us, but there's 7 of us, or just 2 of us sitting here. And so I think that when the state tries to meddle there and try to dictate to you, you're gonna do this and you're not gonna do that, well, that's a very slippery slope, because today I might like what they say, but 5 years from now, maybe I don't like what they say. And why don't we just go back to, it's up to the people in this room and in this community to make those decisions. So while I might like some of the things that they've done, for example, I think we agree that this shift to the science of reading and, everyone's going to teach kids how to read this way because it's more effective. Yeah, I mean, I would say that Dr. Thomas-Tate and I agree on that, but should that have been a mandate from legislation? I don't know, I think it's really tricky. So personally, I'm not for it, but I understand why it's happening. I understand why the omnibus went through. But as part of that understanding is, now where's the solution? And so the solution is, if we become visionaries and change the end product, which means we produce students, graduates, that the community is more satisfied with, then we can perhaps go back to really genuinely being local control, which is where I would like to see it. So I'm not going to sit here and, you got to understand the legislators, they're also people that are elected. People vote for them. And I think this breakdown has occurred because people have forgotten that in order to get the desired product they need to vote in their local elections. And if they do that, then they get the desired product and it gets the state out of our business. Because I really, at the end of the day, don't think they should be in our business.
Can I offer a slightly addition to her comment? I agree that we should have a lot of local control. However, as a person who teaches about education and the history of education in our country, and special education in particular, and I think it's important that there is some level of oversight from the state and from the federal government to assure that those who at the state level oftentimes don't get the support that they need, that those needs are being met. We have a history in this country of segregating students with disabilities, students who have different kinds of needs, and not allowing them to have the kind of appropriate education that they are entitled to. And so I think it's important that we work collaboratively with our state and federal government to make sure that those things are being met, those needs are being met for all students. Unfortunately, we live in a society where, given all local control, there is going to be a hierarchy of needs that are met, and everybody's needs aren't going to be met. And I think that we need to work together, collaboratively, to make sure that all of those needs are met.
100% agree. I didn't mean that like they should totally get out of our business. And we have federal laws and state laws. But should the state, I don't know, you guys should go look at all the laws. They have like this day is birthday in all Springfield, in all state schools. They really nitpick down to, let me give you an example. Every student needs to pass a Missouri Constitution test. Do you guys remember that? Every student needs to take a personal finance course. I'm going to sit here and tell you the fact that those are 2 of the most worthless courses all over the state. Why? I don't know, show of hands. How helpful was that, those courses? Anybody think they were, how many think that you didn't get I know what they wanted you to get out of it. The problem is you didn't get that out of it. Why? Because those courses can be taken online, they can be taken anytime, so a freshman can take a personal finance course. Well, if you really want to do it right, that should be a seated course, it should be when you're a senior, so you learn how to figure out what a compound interest is, what a simple interest is, what a lease agreement is, how to buy a car, how to buy a house, how to open up a bank account. And you just, it's like a box, the state comes and says, do this, and the box just gets checked off. I'm willing to bet that if I gave a civics test, well, maybe not this route. Okay, if I went out there on the street and took a random 19-year-old, they would fail that civic test. And every one of those kids passed with flying colors. So these are the things that each community needs to grapple with and say, you know, we have graduates who are not able to function at a level that we like. And so maybe we shouldn't be wasting our time checking off the boxes for the state. So I'm not talking about anything having to do with, you know, civil rights and special, I mean, that's all great, and we absolutely need that oversight. We need state testing so that we can compare districts. That's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about down to the, you are going to take this course. For example, by state law, you need to take 2 semesters of PE, physical education. Why 2? Why not 1? Why not 3? I mean, who decides, right? I mean, should everybody do fishing? I don't know, if you live in Alaska, that may be a good trade, but maybe not here. So all I'm saying is that this community knows what we want from our graduates, and that somebody in Jeff City, who's from some other community, is advocating for what they want. And so it gets kind of messy. So yeah, the 30,000 view, yes, we want to work with them and collaborate with them. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we advocate. And I just want you guys to know that SBS is doing a really great job. We are connecting with our legislators because we realize that the reason that they were making, like, really getting into the, like, go research, go learn about the omnibus bill that passed last year. It mandates us to do testing a certain way, and you can only pick these 2 companies, right? And so it's a bit much, but we figured out that the reason they're doing that is because we're not communicating with them. They're operating in this void, and like everything in life, communication is going to solve the problem. So we have stepped up, and we went and visited with several legislators. We invited them to come down. In fact, I was kind of bummed, Dr. Thomas-Tate, because right now, when we agreed to do this, I had not put it on my calendar, but right now as we speak, legislators are on a tour of our choice sites, and one of those choice sites I've never been to, and it's the Wolf one, and I'm really bummed to be missing it.
So how often do you guys pay attention to education policymaking at the national level then?
Every day. Every day.
Do you feel like, that's a bad question, this is literally your field, of course you would, but how much do you feel like the decisions of the Biden administration, you've both been on board now for a couple presidencies, the Trump administration, whoever, how often do you feel like they are making determinations that affect what you are doing in your position?
For me, it may be a little bit different. It's literally every day because I teach this information to my students. I was teaching a course yesterday to my graduate students on autism, and so we were having a discussion about paying attention to what's going on in the news with regards to what's being said about autism, and also keep an eye on the research, because that's what we do, is we keep an eye on the research. And so I am staying aware of it on a daily basis with regards to, and also historically, I'm tracking it over time. And so I pay attention to those kind of things. I think as a board, collectively, everybody takes a different level of interest, but we are provided with information on a regular basis from a number of sources that we can take advantage of that provides us with what's going on both locally, statewide, and at the federal level. And to whatever level you want to engage with that information, it is available to us.
I don't know if I'd say I look at it every day, but I try to pay attention. I feel about the federal government much like I do about the state. The more they try to interfere, I think the more damage they do. Because they're there, and we're here. And I'm I think some decoupling is in order. Let's not dance around the topic. Maybe you want to talk about the Federal Department of Education being dissolved. And I think it's important to make sure that everybody understands that every unit within the Federal Department of Education that was providing services and oversight is not going anywhere. It's just going to be housed in a different department that would have perhaps more subject matter expertise in delivering that. Or in essence, they're trying to cut out the middleman, which at the end of the day means more dollars that come to our state and to our district, so that we, at a local government and at a state level, can make some of these decisions. Cutting out the bureaucrats may be a good thing. And again, it's called going old school. We look at what we did 100 years ago and how much did we spend and what were the results, and we look at today. And I'm one of those people that I like to think outside the box, and I'm a big fan of, well, what's the worst thing can happen? Can we go any lower? And if we do, we'll pop back in. So let's try it. We've been trying things a certain way for 20 years, and the numbers, the data's not supporting it. In some other countries, the data supports them, although we're a very big country. So it's not really fair to compare us to like Finland. But at the same time, you look at the data in the States, and you look at, okay, give me 30 seconds on this. So the butt of all jokes used to be, you guys know what state was always at the bottom? Everybody would say, well, thank God for Mississippi. There you go. Thank God for Mississippi. Because Mississippi always came in dead last. Does anybody know where Mississippi is today? So there's a national test every 2 years. 4th graders and 8th grade students get tested, only in 2 subjects, English and math. Mississippi is the only state that showed a positive trend from 2022 to 2024. Mississippi is now in the middle of the pack, no longer number 50, which means Mississippi has made the biggest gains since 2013. So you gotta look at what did Mississippi do. And I can tell you, it had nothing to do with the federal government, because we all are under the same federal government, right? So I don't want to sit here and talk about Mississippi, but I'm trying to make a point of the federal government isn't going to save us.
So my next question is for both of you. The recent local elections had a low voter turnout. What do you think is contributing to this, and how can local governments engage with the community to increase participation?
I know that here at OTC and at Missouri State and other local universities, we've been working very hard to turn out more students and those who are in higher education to the polls. I think we are seeing some movement in that, but I think continuous year-round education regarding the issues, regarding the information that's being shared, regarding the candidates needs to happen. We can't wait till just before elections to get people involved in knowing what's going on. I think we need to have those kinds of engagement year-round. So I'm really glad that you guys are doing this after elections to demonstrate the need to stay informed and not just to get informed for elections.
So your question was, what can we do, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, what can we do to work together to try to raise the voter turnout? Because I do think that educated voters and people need to get their voice out there so they can, like you said, put the people that they believe will make the changes that they want in those positions. So what can we do?
Well, again, there's that old adage, if there's not a bond on the ballot, no one's going to show up. And it's really sad, but that's true. The highest voter turnout we had in the municipal elections is when we have bonds. So they're just think about money. If money's in play, people show up and people care. And what they don't realize is that every election matters, because at the end of the day, it's going to hurt your pocketbook because of declining schools. We don't want to be Detroit, right? We're not going to survive like Kansas City did, because we don't have all the fancy stuff that they have, right? We don't have the Chiefs and the Royals and all that jazz. So I feel that we've tried, to educate the public, wouldn't you say? There's a lot more forums now. So 2021, when I first ran for school board, I think I did 3 forums, maybe. I'm trying to think, is it 3 back then? But this last go-around last year, I want to say every week it was a different forum, it was a different questionnaire. I feel like there's been a lot of engagement from the people, unfortunately, that are already engaged. So
let me
I don't know the answer.
Let me pitch an idea, and I can see some positives and negatives to what I'm about to say. 13% turnout this past election. We get these bonds, like you say, turnout spikes to not even 20%. So let me pitch an idea. Since our worst federal elections, our worst midterms, what's turnout? 45%. That's still better than twice. Sometimes it's 3 times what you guys are getting in these April elections. So let's glob you guys into the November election. Now the upside is better turnout. The downside is a bunch of the issues that you guys run on get obscured, right? They get swallowed up by the gaping maw of national and even state politics. Positives, negatives, where do you come down? Do you prefer 13% turnout and a more focused election on your issues, or higher turnout, but you guys get obscured?
This topic comes up pretty regularly, and there's different positions about staying in April or moving to a different period of time. Going back with the fall elections, me personally, I do think that we should keep it in April. I mean, the turnout in November is not great. I think that there's a lot of barriers to voting right now. That's a whole different topic that I don't necessarily think is the appropriate forum for this right now. However, I think part of the problem are the barriers that are in place regarding voting. I still think that we get the higher bump in turnout because we do all of the informationals and education right before elections of those issues. But I think that the year-round education, the year-round drive, the year-round engagement and participation is going to have to increase it. We tend to only do those kinds of engagements right before an election, and only when there are issues on the ballot that are going to affect people's pocket, because that's going to bring more people out. But I do think we just need to get more people engaged, involved, and educated year-round.
About 5 minutes from now, we'll open up the floor more for anybody who might have some thoughts for our panelists. But
Can I say on that? So currently there are 14 states that have elections on cycle in November. On cycle means that you have them every 2 years in alignment with the midterms and the presidential elections. The remaining states are off cycle. Some of them, like Kansas in 2019, moved it to off cycle November. So they're trying to train their voters to vote every November. But they put their municipal elections, so municipal being school board, the April elections, city council, commissioner, not commissioner, like in that state it just so happens to be. So they put them in the odd year November so that it's easier for people to remember